The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thanks to you all for taking time out of your day to attend this webinar. My name is Tara Anderson. I'm sure I've met some of you at certain events and things like that, but I have been managing this program for a few years now, and I will be your presenter today. I want to thank my colleague Leah Lasivita, who is making sure the webinar runs smoothly, and she'll also be the one taking your questions through chat and sending them to me at the end of the presentation. So thanks a bunch to Leah. Before we jump into the presentation, I just want to touch on a few technical notes. So during the webinar, if you have any technical trouble, you can call our front desk at 206-625-1300. You'll notice that when you first entered the webinar, a toolbar appeared on the side of your screen. And to expand or collapse that toolbar, you can click on the orange arrow. And to submit questions or comments, you can expand the question section and type your question or comment and then click the send button. And again, we'll go over questions at the end of the presentation. Also, so you all know, this webinar is being recorded and a link to that recording will be available within 1 week tops. So if you have to leave early or if you want to share this with anyone in your office, it will be shareable. So today's agenda is pretty simple. We're going to cover what MRSC rosters is, and then we'll talk, pardon me, sorry about that. After we cover what MRSC rosters is, we'll go ahead and talk about the application, renewal, and editing processes because that is great to know. And then we'll go over some application highlights that center around common questions that I get from business members. And then we'll also cover how public agencies are using MRSC rosters to search for businesses like yours. And again, at the end, we'll go over some common questions and have time for your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll just begin with a reminder of what MRSC rosters is, because I know that many of you out there signed up for this because some city or county told you to do it, and now here you are. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. MRSC rosters is the only directory that connects businesses with almost 600 public agencies in Washington state. And participating agencies contract with our business members for small public works projects, consulting opportunities, and goods and services. For agencies, MRSC rosters is an affordable way for Washington cities, counties, and special purpose districts like school districts and fire districts to procure services using what is called a roster contracting process. So for a small membership fee, these agencies can save staff time and other resources by having MRSC provide full maintenance of their small public works consultant and vendor rosters. And I do want to quickly talk about what the roster contracting process is, because it is key to the reason why this program exists. So there are generally two approaches to public works contracting: a full bid process or a roster process. And most Washington local governments have the option to use a roster process instead of a full bid process for public works projects under $300,000. And that threshold is actually moving to $350,000 starting July 28th. This contracting process can also be used for small to medium-sized consultant projects and vendor needs. In the full bid process, an agency would traditionally post an advertisement for the specific project and then select a business from respondents. However, if an agency chooses to use the roster contracting process, they will not post an advertisement at all. Instead, they're going to search their roster by a service category and then directly contact registered businesses about the project. If a roster process is used, the businesses are required to be registered on the public agency roster at the time of solicitation in order to be eligible to bid on that project. So you can see why it's so important to be signed up on an agency's roster, whether it's through MRSC rosters or if the agency maintains their own roster through that roster itself. Because this way you can make sure that you're considered for these opportunities that you're eligible for but are not being advertised. And also that means it's important to make sure your account is active, that you keep your information up to date, and that you stay listed with the agencies that you want to be listed with. And those are all things we'll touch on later in this presentation. So you're probably wondering what agencies across Washington State use MRSC rosters. There are 588 different agencies that do use this service, and over 40 new agencies are joining every year. So agencies include cities like the city of Spokane, Renton, Everett. It includes counties like Pierce County, Yakima County, Skagit County, and so on. It also includes hundreds of special purpose districts, such as Sound Transit, Bellingham School District. We have different fire districts and irrigation districts that use this service to search for businesses like yours. And you can check out the full list on the website as well. There's a link here on the screen, or if you just go to the website, you can click on the linked number that you see on the homepage, and it'll take you right to the list. So now we'll go ahead and talk about how you can get signed up if you're not already, though I believe most of you are. We'll also talk about renewal, and you can do that whether or not your account is expired or about to expire. And we'll then talk about how you can make updates to your application. So signing up is easy. If you haven't already, you just visit mrscrosters.org, click on that business tab and create an account for free. You'll be linked to your application, which you can fill out with some pretty basic information. And then you submit that application for review so that we can make sure you meet the minimum requirements to work with Washington State agencies. That takes us about 2 to 3 business days. If you are approaching a bid deadline and you need to make sure your application is active in the system before that deadline hits, just let us know. We can help out with that. And once you are signed up, you probably are wondering what your membership includes. And so some of you, this might just be a refresher, but it's a good one. So specifically as a business member, you have the opportunity to register on local government small public works, consultant, and vendor rosters with one online application. You can register with up to 9 different local government entities for free with the basic application. And then a small $10 administrative fee will apply if you decide that you want to be listed with 10 or more individual agencies as a basic member. And just to clarify, that $10 fee is just a flat fee. It is something that you pay once a year upon renewal, but it does not apply to each individual agency you select. So just want to make that clear. And then as an enhanced member, if you're using the enhanced membership application, you can get listed statewide with all 588 participating agencies. and that's just with one click. And then you're automatically listed with the new agencies that join, which again, about 40 new agencies are joining every year. And this can cost as little as $75, but that does vary depending on your business type. So you can view the chart for that fee on the website if you just go to the business tab and then click on application options on the side of the screen. As a registered business, you are eligible for job notifications from participating local government agencies. These job and project opportunities are generally not advertised, like I mentioned before. So if you're not signed up, then you will not be notified and you might be missing out. So just keep that in mind. Once you are a member, I did mention you do need to renew, and that renewal happens once a year. That's once a year from that original time of sign up. We do email you 30, 20, and 10 days before your application expires, so you don't really have to, set a reminder in your calendar. We will remind you. And once you log in during your renewal period, you'll just be prompted immediately to renew. So it's difficult to forget to do. However, if you do miss your renewal deadline, your application will stay active in our system, so you can log in and reactivate your account by renewing. So your information will remain, it will be saved, and you won't have to start from scratch or create a new account. So when you're renewing, you'll just log in, you'll click the renewal button. Enhanced members can use the quick renewal button, and that's just going to give you an expedited renewal process where you can, at a glance, scan through your information and renew really quickly. After you click on that renewal button, you'll just have the chance to confirm that your business information is up to date. Make sure that you update any old or expired information, and then you just submit that renewal application and you're good to go for another year. So requiring this renewal is necessary for maintaining a roster. It also just helps our public agency members feel confident that the business information that they're reviewing when deciding who to contact or deciding and making sure that businesses are eligible, making sure that that information is accurate and up to date. It does also give you a chance to refresh and add new information. So if you've gotten a new certification over the past year, or hopefully you've written a new statement of qualification, if that applies to your business, this is a time to upload that information, update that information so that you remain relevant. If your business information does change in between renewal periods, then you can log in and edit your application at any time. So I'm just going to show you how you can edit that application. It's very basic. All you do is log in to your account, click to edit your application, and then you'll click the green edit icon next to the section you want to update. And I'll just show you a quick little video of what this looks like on your end so that you have a sense of that process. And while we're watching this, I just want to mention that we will always email you when new agencies join. We'll always email you when new service categories are added. And we'll always email you when there's a new feature on the application that you need to be aware of. So you're not going to be missing out on any of these updates or deadlines, but it is then really important that you're keeping your email addresses and other contact information up to date, just so that we are getting that information to you. Also, just be aware that those emails aren't going into your spam folder. You might want to make sure that you've added our email address to your safe list so it's not going into that folder. And again, checking in periodically is a great way to just make sure you're not missing out on something that's expired, because if you have a license that's necessary for the work you're doing or whatnot, and an agency sees that that's expired, then they might not consider you. So just be aware of that. Um, Now, there are a few sections in the application that I want to touch on specifically, and we'll start with the business information section so that we can talk about roster types. So in the very first section of your application, you get to choose which roster types to be listed in. There's the small works roster, which covers construction, remodeling, maintenance, and repair. We have the consultant roster, which covers architecture, engineering, and other professional services like legal and environmental consulting. And then the vendor roster, which covers goods and supplies and purchase services like mechanic work. So it is important to make sure you're choosing accurately here because this will determine which service categories you choose from in your application. You don't want to be listed on the wrong roster because this will cause the agency to be confused. And then also you'll be getting emails that don't apply to you, and that's always obnoxious. So just be clear on what you're selecting. You can select multiple types. So if you provide small works type services, but you also are a vendor and you sell lumber, then you can select both of those options. So any combination is possible, but it is just important to be mindful that you're making an accurate selection. And if you have questions about roster type and what might best fit for you, you can reach out to us and we can walk you through that and come to a conclusion. So the next page I want to talk about is your certification page. So this page is not a required page to fill out. However, it is really important and becoming increasingly important to agencies. So this is where you can identify as a women-owned business, a minority-owned business, veteran-owned, and so on. Um, Again, this is important to fill out. Don't skip it if it applies to you. So if you have not gotten certification, but you have applied for certification and you're waiting for your certification number, you can write self-certified in the field that applies to you. Or if you are simply self-certified and you don't currently have the intention to go through the step of getting an actual number, you can still write self-certified because that flags to the agency that you are this type of business. And then you can work with the agency directly if they're contacting you on figuring out what their requirements are for documenting that in their process. If you want to find out more about getting a certification, I really suggest that you visit omwbe.wa.org and sba.gov. Both of those websites are here on this slide. Both of those offer certifications, and then they also have a lot of great resources, trainings. Many of you are probably familiar, but I just want to give them a little shout out because they are awesome. And then moving on, another section of the application that I get a lot of questions about is the statement of qualifications section. And this is where you can upload that SOQ or Statement of Qualifications document. And this is required for consultants. So if you're out there and you're on the consultant roster, you are probably familiar with the fact that this is required for you. And it's really important to make sure that you're keeping this up to date, that every year you have a new SOQ that is required by the agency. The agencies are looking at this document because when it comes to choosing a consultant to work with, they're choosing whomever is the best qualified first and foremost. And this document is what they're looking at to determine who is best qualified when they're considering who to contact and move forward in the process. So really make sure that you're spending time with this document if you are on the consultant roster. This on the screen here is just an outline of what your statement of qualification document might include, what it might look like, how it might be organized. Some of these items may or may not be applicable to the type of work you're doing. Um, but I do suggest that you keep it under 20 pages in length. Make it easy for agencies to skim, at a glance, but still get a clear idea of your specialties. Just making sure that, when you're designing the document itself, you have good bold headers that clarify what section the agency might be looking at, and that you're using certain keywords when you're listing your skills and qualifications that would be applicable to the type of work that you're interested in doing. Um, so moving on, there are a couple other sections that I'll cover, including the service category selection section of the application and the public agency rosters selection. The selected services section is, of course, very significant. And remember, the categories you choose from on the services page are determined by the roster type you select on the first page of your application. So for example, if you've selected to be listed on the small works and vendor roster, then you'll be able to select from small works and vendor roster service categories. When you're selecting and updating the services you provide, it's really important to choose honestly and accurately. Do not select services that you do not provide. Ultimately, this wastes agency time and can actually paint your business in a negative light and decrease your chances of being contacted by agencies with opportunities that actually apply to you. So you really have a much better chance of being contacted with relevant project opportunities when you select your service categories accurately. And I know some of you out there might be thinking, well, I don't see a category that fits what I provide. What can I do here? In that scenario, we do advise that you choose what most closely matches, but also submit a suggestion to us. You can submit a suggestion on this page by clicking on this link that I'm sort of pointing to with the arrow here, just suggesting a category. And that way we understand that there is a need potentially for a new category. We do update these lists periodically. I know a lot of you have sent in suggestions over the last several months, and I'm working with my developers to get some of these new categories added to our website, and I will be sending out an email once that has been updated. So just be on the lookout for that in your inbox. So in this last section, we'll discuss the selected public agency rosters section. And this is where you get to choose which agencies that you want to be listed with and visible to. I want to stress that it's very important to only select those agencies who are in areas where you're able and willing to provide work. For example, if your business only provides your service in counties within a 150-mile radius of your location, then you should not select statewide. Instead, you just want to select the agencies in the areas where you actually serve. Doing this is going to improve your chance of being considered for projects you're truly eligible for. Also, if you have different branches serving different regions, then each branch would benefit from managing its own account and just indicating its location in the business name. I talk to a lot of agencies, and one of the common things that they say is, I see these businesses, they're not in my area. Now, agencies are not, they don't really have the ability to give preference to quote unquote local businesses. However, when they are considering bids, they are considering the cost of travel and those other expenses that would be related with distance. They can also, I guess, consider what would be on-call service ability. So sometimes they need to be able to be confident that if something goes wrong with something that's been installed or built, that they can get service for that issue relatively quickly from their provider. So it is, again, it's something to consider when you're signing up. And if you do have different branch locations, it is helpful to you and to the agency if you have different accounts for those locations. And again, just keep in mind that on average, over 40 new agencies are joining every year. So as new agencies join, it's a good idea to keep your selections up to date. You can log in and edit your selections at any time. And again, we do email your these announcements for these new agencies whenever they do join. So we are keeping you in the loop. Um, those of you who have enhanced membership and have selected to be listed by a county grouping or have selected to be listed statewide, you have the benefit of these new agencies being automatically added to your application when they join. So you actually don't really have to worry so much about this periodic upkeep. 22 agencies did recently join. So if you are a basic member, now is a good time to maybe revisit this part of your application and just make sure the agency is selected who you can serve. So at this point, it's possible that you're wondering if your business account is actually active within the MRSC Rosters program, and there is a pretty easy way to find out. You can just log in to your account and view your status in the upper right corner, and that will indicate that you're active or if you're expired. Alternatively, you can go to mrscrosters.org, and I'll show you a little video here where you can click on the business tab, scroll down to the registered businesses link here, and then search to see if your name appears on the list. And this is a good way to just make sure that you are in fact active. If you have a hard time locating your status, you can contact us directly and we can help you out with that. There's a contact form on the webpage, or you can email me. My email address will be provided at the end of this presentation. But also you can just reply to your all the emails I've sent out with the webinar invitations and whatnot. If you have submitted your application recently, or if you haven't submitted your application yet, just keep in mind it takes us 2 to 3 business days to review and approve those submitted applications, so you're not going to appear immediately on the registered business list. Now I'm going to move into talking about how our public agency members use MRSC rosters to search for and contact businesses like yours. If you do have questions that are specific to the business application, you can submit those now, but I'll be answering them at the end of the presentation, so just keep that in mind. Once your account is active with MRSC rosters, you are actively listed with your selected agencies and eligible to receive project opportunities. We do not post project opportunities like some of the websites you might be familiar with. We also do not host bid documents. So all of that is information that you would want to get directly from the agency itself. The way that our system works is agencies will search for businesses when they have a need or a project coming up. They'll access their account and they'll search by roster type. So either that SmallWorks consultant or vendor roster. And then they're going to filter businesses by service category. And these are the same categories that you select from. And once they have selected that service category, they're just going to search businesses and they'll be provided with a list of eligible businesses. So these are the businesses in the system who have met the minimum requirements to work with Washington State public agencies. So how do you know if your business appears on their list when they search their roster? Your business will appear in a public agency's roster when you have selected to be listed on that agency's roster, when the agency has searched a roster type you selected, so small works, consultant, or vendor, and that agency has searched for a service or services that you selected and indicated you provide. A common scenario that does come up is that a business might contact me because they have been told they're not appearing on a list when an agency searches. So if an agency you want to work with says to you, hey, I have this job coming up. I ran a search on our roster. You're not on the list. What's up? The first thing you might want to do is just ask them what's the roster type they're searching and what's the service category they're searching. At that point, you can then log into your account and make sure that, one, your account is active, and two, that you have selected that roster type and the service category that that agency is searching by. And as long as you have those things in place, you should appear on their list. And you can make those changes to your application. The changes are reflected immediately. So it's pretty easy to get on the same page as the agency once you have established what's the roster type they're searching and what's the service category they're searching by. So once you're on that generated list, agencies are going to contact you directly with RFPs, RFQs, and the bid documents, and that's typically going to be by email. So just make sure that you are able to accept bulk mail from local government email addresses. You don't want those going into your spam. Probably good to check your spam. I'm sure we all are always checking our spam folder these days, but that's just a friendly reminder to keep doing it. I do know that there are some agencies who actually will call businesses before they email businesses to verify their interest. For example, Capitol Hill Housing does that. So that being said, make sure you're answering those phone calls and that you're just keeping those phone numbers and contact names up to date so they can get in touch with you. So we're about to wrap things up, but I do want to touch on some common questions that businesses come up with. So one main question is, why is it important to be listed with MRSC rosters? I know as a business, you probably have to sign up on lots of different, services when you want to work with local government, and that can be frustrating. There can be a lot of hoops that you feel like you have to jump through, but this is an important thing to check off your list just because with the roster contracting process, agencies do not post advertisements for these opportunities, and you have to be on their list to be considered. So that's just one reason. Another thing is it really this can be a jumping off point of starting a relationship with a public agency. I have talked to a few businesses over the years where, they started out building a relationship by winning a small contract through this roster contracting process, and that led to a relationship built up over time for other projects down the road. So, that doesn't hurt. Again, another question that comes up, are there jobs posted on MRSC rosters? No, there are not. And that's just simply we don't have a platform that provides that. And at this point, we are simply existing to facilitate that roster contracting process where the agencies contact you directly, which also just makes it a very simple platform to interact with. So we don't ask too much of you, and I think that is a positive. Lastly, something that does come up as well is I'm signed up on MRSC rosters, but I haven't been contacted by any public agencies. Why is that? And so there are a couple reasons that this could be. Your account might be inactive because you forgot to renew, or maybe your business contact changed hands and so no one was really notified that you needed to renew. So again, you can log in at any time, reactivate. That will increase your chances, of course, if you're active in the system. Um, Again, your contact information is significant. If you have out-of-date contact information, then you're not going to be contacted. Something else we touched on, your spam filter or firewall could be preventing mail from reaching you, so you can chat with your IT team to make sure that's good to go. And then, last but not least, public agency needs will vary by the type of agency, the size of the agency, the season, their funding source, what contracts they have already, agreed to. Um, all of that impacts how often these agencies are reaching out. Um, I will say, though, there are hundreds of searches run every day through this service. Well, every day except weekends and government holidays, but otherwise, hundreds of searches are coming through this platform daily. So it's good to make sure you're there and active so that you're not missing out. And as a quick recap, I do see some questions trickling in, but again, you just register once, you renew annually, so once a year. You can be listed with as few as one agency and as many as 588, and you're contacted directly by the agency with contract opportunities. We aren't sending out those opportunities. The agency specifically is sending those out. So now we'll start going over some questions. As a reminder, to send those questions to me, expand or collapse that toolbar by clicking the arrow and then enter your question in the dialog box and just click send. And I'm just going to leave this LNI training requirement reminder up on the screen for a moment while I dive into the questions that are already streaming in. Real quickly, beginning July 1st, which is coming up on us, all businesses, all contractor type businesses are required to have training before bidding on or performing work for public works projects. So some of you are exempt if you've completed a certain amount of projects already successfully for local government. Those of you who haven't successfully completed projects yet, you probably are not exempt from this training and need to complete it. This is something we are going to start checking for when we're approving applications. So here's a link, here's the information. Check it out. All right, I will jump into answering some of these first questions here. So one question is, how easy is it to upgrade from basic to enhanced membership? Can it be done at any time? It is pretty easy. All you have to do is log into your account, click to edit your application, and then you can go down to the public agency section, just click to upgrade to enhanced if you'd like, or simply by clicking to be listed with everybody statewide will prompt you to upgrade to the enhanced membership. And yes, this can be done at any time. If you have any trouble with that process, you can reach out to us, but it should be pretty self-explanatory once you're in the actual application. Let's see. Our firm is AWI certified and there is no place to put other certifications. Can this field be added? That is a great suggestion. I'm going to jot that down. Yes, we can look into adding that field. I admit that I'm not 100% sure what AWI certified is, but I think, yeah, it would be a good idea for us to have other certifications so that you can indicate anything that isn't covered explicitly in our application. Thank you for that. Let's see. Okay, next question. As a subcontractor, how can I reach out to the contractor to know that my company is available for subbing? That is a great question. I don't have a great answer for you, just because right now our platform doesn't really have a system in place where businesses can contact each other. That's something that we have surveyed our members about. We have talked to businesses in person about that option. And it looks like something in the coming year we're going to explore building out that ability within the system where you can contact each other, indicate that you're available for subcontracting. Um, at this point, though, there's not a way within our system to do that, unfortunately. So I apologize if anyone out there has a suggestion. You can send it as a message. We can share that. Otherwise, it can be helpful maybe for the agency you're working with to make sure that the main contractor, the prime that they're working with, is using eligible businesses on the MRSC rosters when working with that agency to find these subcontractors. And I know some agencies do follow that practice, and that is a good practice. Let's see. My account says registered. Does that mean active? Yes, registered does mean active. So you're good to go. Let's see. What is the renewal fee? So the renewal fee will vary depending on the type of application you're using. If you are an enhanced member, your renewal fee will be potentially $75. Depends, though, again, on the business type you are. So you can check on the website or you can check your past invoices and just see if you're a basic member and you're at the $10 level, it's going to be a $10 renewal fee. If you're a basic member and you're free and you've just selected 9 different agencies to be listed with, then there is no renewal fee. I hope that covers that. But if you have if you want to reach out to me directly and just get a specific answer for your business, I'm happy to give you that answer. Another question, can we upload a company brochure for the SOQ? Yes, you can upload a company brochure for the Statement of Qualifications document. I would say that works fine if you're not an architect or engineer. If you're providing more professional services, then a brochure probably is sufficient. Architects and engineers, I'm sure those of you who are out there listening are probably more familiar with the SOQ document in its traditional format, and you'll want to abide by that. Okay, next question. And then some of you, if you don't have time to hang around, I'm just going to flip over to this screen. Here's an email address. If you can't hang around to ask your question, you have to get going, you can send your question in by email to me. Okay, so the next question, can you apply to one roster and then another later? How and when? So yes, when you are signing up on the roster, like I said, you can select small works, consultant, or vendor. You can select any combination. If you at one point select small works and then later down the road you want to also be listed on the vendor roster, all you need to do is log in and edit that account. If there are other fields where required information is then necessary because of that change, those required fields will be indicated in sort of like a red bar saying, hey, you're missing information, go to this section, fill it out. But yeah, you can do that at any time. So it should be pretty straightforward once you're in there editing. But again, reach out to us if you have any trouble with that process. Okay, so another question here. Our company performs work through an additional DBA. Should the DBA also be registered separately, or add the work description through the main company? Um, I mean, that's really, I guess, really what works best for you. Uh, as long as you have indicated the services provided by your company and by that DBA in your application, and you've provided the contact information so that the agency can easily get in touch with who they need to be in touch with, then that's probably fine. Also, if that's easier for your business to maintain just one account, that's probably easier for you too. However, if there is a discrepancy in, the DBA provides something separate from the company that you're talking about, or they serve different areas, or they have, different offices with different contact information, then it could be helpful to just have separate accounts. So let's see. Another question. Will this services be helpful for anyone doing import-export businesses? There is no category for this. Um, I don't know that it would be, I guess that's something, if you can email me directly with more context, then we can talk about what category might work for you and then also talk about adding a new category. But, a good measurement of whether or not this is a good place for your business to be based on what you provide is whether or not you've ever worked with government to provide such a service, or if a government has reached out to you and asked if you can do such work for them. So yeah, I would say email me with some more context and we can continue that conversation if that's helpful. Let's see. Another question. When I logged in, we had a prior PDF uploaded of qualifications by my predecessor. I was unable to download and update this PDF. How do I do this? You should be able to do that by clicking the edit icon when you log in to edit the application, and then clicking the edit icon next to the statement of qualifications section. That should work, and if it doesn't, let me know and we can take a closer look at that process. But that should work for you. You can also delete that document and then upload a new one when you're doing that editing process. Another question, when signing up for agencies, do you have to sign up for a city that is within a county, or should I sign up for both the city and the county in which it is located? Are these considered two separate agencies? So yes, they would be considered two separate agencies. For example, Yakima County and the City of Yakima are both members of MRSC rosters. You'll see that the agencies are organized by county grouping, and then they're alphabetical. So if you scroll down to Yakima County as the header, you're going to see several different agencies listed that you can put a checkbox next to, including the City of Yakima and including Yakima County. And you'll want to select both as separate entities. Thank you for asking that question, because it's an important thing to be aware of. Okay, another question here. Are the typical projects here a full package awarded to a general contractor, and then the contractor hires subcontractors for specific work? Or do the agencies call specific contractors separately? That is an excellent question, and I don't have a concrete answer for you. I know that the different agencies function differently, and that they are going to have different ways of moving about using the service, and different contracts, different types of packages that would go through. So I do believe that, generally they are going to be contacting specific contractors. just because these are, contracts that are 300,000 and under, when they are grabbing their list of eligible businesses to contact, the practice that, they're mostly going to follow is just contacting all of those eligible folks on that list with the opportunity. That's going to be at least the first step in their process. Once they start collecting bids and moving forward in that process, then it can vary. But, step one, they're searching the roster. Step two, they are emailing out the opportunity to every eligible business on that roster. Step three, they're going to be documenting who's responding and with what information and bids. So that's really, the extent of how I see the procedure working for the agencies. And after that, agencies with internal policies, it's going to vary, and their processes based on the project type and the needs of that project will vary as well. Let's see. Another question is, we have been awarded by another state project on call roster. Would that be useful to inform you? Not really. I mean, we don't really need to be informed of that. We don't really function in that capacity, but congratulations on being awarded a project. That's awesome. Another question here. It looks like this is our last question. Are there additional information, requirements, and training on how to respond to the emergency work requests? Great question. We don't have additional training on that. I can probably, if you want to email me directly with this request, I can probably look into resources that are available out there specific to emergency work, and I can get back to you with some information surrounding that. Another place that offers a lot of training in various topics, including, I assume, emergency work issues, would be PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center of Washington. If you visit their website, they have a training calendar, but they also have a ton of resources and also business mentors who will answer all your questions when it comes to working with local government. So that can be very helpful if you have more questions about doing emergency work for government. But yeah, looks like that is our last question of the day. So I just want to thank you all for being here. Looks like another question came in. How long is the required training for contractors? I don't know how long it is. If you check the L&I website, and I can maybe go back to that link. Go to this website. You can get all the training information. I believe the training is free. I do know that. So that's good. But I'm not sure how long it takes. And I think it's possible that it's able to be completed online. So yeah, just go to the website and find out first if you need that training, and then the other details are there. So, all right. It looks like we got an answer. We have 3 hours in person or online. So that is the length of the training. Thank you, whoever provided that answer. It could have been Leah or a participant. So thank you. All right. So again, that was our last question. Thank you all for being here. Here's my contact information should anything else come up. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today. I hope some of what we covered was helpful. If you have any suggestions or feedback or items that you'd like to see covered in future webinars, please do let us know, include that in an email or complete the survey when you leave the webinar. Thank you. Have a great day.